Hey guys, it is the Indy Mayhem show, the show where we talk about independent professional. I'm going to start that over because I can do that. Hey guys, it is the Indy Mayhem show, the show where we talk with and about independent professional wrestling with the people in the business from all around. And we're getting back, obviously, into the interviews. I know we did a lot of crazy quarantine hangout stuff for several weeks, but we have some very exciting interviews and some very poignant topics over the next couple of weeks here as we move forward. Whether wrestling's happening or not in independent fashion, in whatever forms those may take these days. But you know what is not changed? Books. We're going to talk about books today and some stuff around that. Please, of course, check out everything at WrestlingMayhemShow.com for this and other great podcasts that we have around professional wrestling. And over at IndieWrestling.us, this past episode's list, a lot of great interviews with people over the years. I think we just featured a classic interview we had with some guy named Wardlow. That's doing something on TV, maybe. And, of course, a lot of people we talk with on the show are represented over there on multiple different formats, our live streams on Twitch, YouTube, all over the place. So please take a deep dive into independent professional wrestling, especially if you have some time, if you're staying away from people still at this point. So with that, I do have a very special guest, and it always this is somebody that I've endeavored to have on the show multiple times over the years. I think we may have had you on once a long time ago, but it's really easy to put people when you know they're not going anywhere the last couple of months.
I think I've hid from you for such a long period of time that I finally get the opportunity. I did one show honestly, when I was signing into this Google Hangouts, is that it came up in 2016 that we had our last conversation.
That sounds about right. You know him by many names. Maybe you know that voice. I know him as Potter, mostly. Referee Bobby Williams, Robert Parker Williams. I always mess that up. I got it. Okay. All right. RPW. And did I miss any?
Mantis, Bobby Digital, Harold Potter, Bobby Potter. The list goes on and on.
Oh man, Potter is with us. Bobby Williams. However, I'm going to call you three different names through in the course of this. You know that.
That's fine. I actually refereed a show one time as Norm Connors, but he doesn't have to know about that.
I'm sure he's not watching. Hey, Norm. But anyways, we also have a special guest, a surprise guest, actually, to talk with us about as we get into our main topic for this episode. Glenn Spectre is with us.
What's up, guys? How's everybody doing?
I think a guy I've had exactly one conversation with over the last 20 years of being around wrestling. So,
God, I know. I really like just before we even get into any of the other big type stuff. Bobby did a lot to kind of bring me, like Bobby, I struggled a lot after, all the Jimmy stuff, and he's done a lot to bring me back into like talking about it. I still watch wrestling, and I'm still a big fan, and I love the work I did too. But I've watched a couple of your shows and things like that. I think this stuff's great.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So the big topic, the reason we're here, I am actually really glad we did delay the show. We were originally supposed to have this a few days before, but it gave me enough time for me and apparently everybody else in the world that ordered a copy to get a copy of the Devil Bhudakahn, the man behind the mask. And that's the big thing that we're going to be talking about this week on the show. I managed to get about halfway through the book. I'm deep in the middle of Glenn's part of the book, which is a very detailed history and always exciting for me because again I started getting into Pittsburgh wrestling around 2006, so this there's a lot of stuff in here that kind of predates that I hear about. I always hear stories about, and it's really cool to kind of go through kind of a history of that. So before we get into this book in particular, Bobby, so talk to me about, this is your third book. And I realized beforehand I actually missed one of them. So talk to me a little bit about I guess becoming an author, putting these things together, and kind of the history of that and how that came to be.
So it kind of started off as a joke because not many people know this, but I have an older brother who draws comics for a living, and he was responsible for drawing the latest X-Men comic. Mm-hmm. So when I would go to my parents' house, they would always be showing off all this stuff that he did and all this stuff that he's been working on. And I'm like, I have nothing to show for it. Everything I have is online, and like my dad's old fashioned. He doesn't watch like YouTube or anything like that. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to create like a memoir of all my wrestling pictures, all my results, and I'm just going to do something cool that I can give to him as like a Christmas present. And I had so much fun putting that together, so that on Christmas when they came over to the house, I gave both my brother a copy and my parents a copy of the first installment, I guess you can say, which is what I consider my referee book. It's a detailed history of all of my referee matches that I've been a part of, including pictures and just some cool stuff that I stumbled across over the years. So my parents were blown away, and now that's like the thing that they show everybody when they come over is, look at this, I got this too, so I could one up my brother. But as I started putting that together, I was like, you know what, my in-ring wrestling career is going to be ending soon. I'm still refereeing, but as far as like wrestling matches, I've had my time in the ring. I'm beat up, I'm broken down. I can't go like I used to. So I wanted to document my wrestling career. I wrestled since 2002, and I've kept track of everything because I'm weird about lists and keeping like records of things. So I have every documented match I ever had. 90% of them I have on tape too, which is kind of cool. But I wanted to document everything and preserve it, so that when my daughter's old enough, she can look at her dad and see all the cool stuff that he did once when he was younger. Mm-hmm. So that's how I put up number 2, the book about my wrestling career, which is this one here. I'll send you links to everything so you can attach it to the videos.
Absolutely.
And then I started working on some things on the side, and it was actually my wife that really helped put the Devil Project in the works. Her and I have talked a lot about Jimmy's passing, and there's a lot of stuff that I held in for so many years. I never really opened up to too many people. Obviously, she knows everything, and I told her, and she really helped me to get it all out. And I just decided that, you know what, this is the right time to really speak about the situation and tell what happens to somebody when they do lose somebody, in the way that I lost Jimmy. So I wanted to do this for a few reasons, that being the first. And, being a dad, it changes you. And knowing that he was a father of 3, and I'm not going to speak ill about his wife, but I thought about his kids and what they might think. And they're at the age now where I'm sure they're going to have questions. And I think his oldest kid is probably about 18 now. And I want her to one day find this book and pick it up and look at it and know exactly who their father truly was. And that's what I tried to do with this story.
Absolutely. And again, picked up the copy. I've gotten about halfway through this and hearing about that history. I mean, this is one, you do have the history of his matches, and interesting to see some faces in there that I recognize, and the imagery and kind of an idea of everything that was going on at the time, including a lot of stories, a lot of kind of anecdotal stories I see from Shirley Doe. Go ahead.
That picture right there is
yes.
from it's a match that gets circulated a lot. It's when we wrestled Sexual Harassment and Sabu. That was the locker room picture we did right before that match.
Nice.
That was actually a photograph that I took.
Yeah.
one of my many hats in the professional wrestling world. To back up to when I first met Devil, mm-hmm. I used to actually run and manage his website when I was in high school.
It was like a what was the old what's that old like
like Angel Fire or Tripod?
Yeah, it was like an Angel Fire Tripod type gimmick.
Yeah. It was an Angel Fire website. If you go on that history like website thing where you can go find like the archives.
Archive.org.
Yep. If you type it in, you can go and actually find the website. I think it's devilb.net, I believe is the actual link, and you can still find it on there and everything still exists.
Nice.
If I can back it up just 1 second, I also wanted to say, like, that was a big, when Bobby contacted me to write some stuff about this, that was like one of the most important things was the part he touched upon. I worry that his kids don't understand how much of a positive influence he had on so many people. I really hope, if anything else, they read this and they also get to see the anniversary, not the anniversary show, the memorial show that we did. Like, how much raw emotion, and like, it's stuff that we'll carry with us the rest of our lives positively.
Absolutely, without a doubt. One of the things I'm kind of bummed about when I ran the memorial show is I had everybody talk in front of the camera, but I was so busy trying to get set up that I never got the opportunity to say my piece. And I think that this is an accurate portrayal of what I would have said in front of that camera.
Absolutely. And I was telling you guys beforehand, like, that Devil Bhudakahn memorial show is very important for me. Like, not knowing much of Devil being when I got into wrestling in the area, but it was the first kind of view for me, seeing everybody all over the place come together and kind of see Pittsburgh wrestling do that. And we've, for various reasons, good reasons and unfortunate reasons, seen that since in a few ways. But that there was something there that was a different vibe than we've seen since.
So when I was training under Devil, he had this vision. He and I lived in the same town, so he would pick me up, and I was 14 going on 15 years old when I first started training. So obviously I couldn't drive. So he would swing by, pick me up, and we would drive from my town, Munhall, all up to Penn Hills where our school is. And he would just talk about wrestling and like smart me up to everything. And he had this vision of running a show at Monroeville Mall. He wanted to do like a Super Juniors tournament because he was a junior heavyweight wrestler. And he had this idea of like creating a committee of promoters. Like, he had it all on paper that he wanted to do, like 5 or 6 different committee members that would vote on matches, have every promotion involved, and it would be just a good way to keep the entire area together. And obviously it never happened. So when I was thinking about doing this memorial show, I said, what better way than to get every promotion involved? And that's exactly what happened. It's the first time in the history of Pittsburgh wrestling did everybody come together for one night, for one cause. And it was a huge success. No headaches, no egos, no bullshit. It was straight business, and everybody worked their ass off. And we gave the people that were there in the middle of a crazy snowstorm one hell of a night.
Oh, yeah.
The emotion in that locker room, like, I'll never forget that night. It intensely powerful moment, just for a guy who did, like I said, had done so much for us. And just, it was so much hugging and so much tears. And I don't know, it's just one of the most raw and most emotional shows that I've ever been a part of. And the energy from the crowd was crazy. Like, it was, I think people realized how we were like howling to the heavens, to try to contact Jimmy in that moment. It was amazing.
When I reached out to all the different talent that I talked to about coming back for this show, JT Rogers was one of the first people that I contacted because I knew of his relationship with Jimmy. And JT's first words were, "Can I bring my photographer?" I said, "Absolutely." And I want to show you this picture that he captured right here. This picture sums up the entire night right there. Just the raw emotion of everybody in the locker room. And unfortunately, I can't get the disc to work, but I have all of the photos that he took, and there were so many more just like it that I would love to look at again. And I couldn't get any of them to work for this book project.
It's a shame. That's a shame. So he's touched on so many lives, and of course you're collecting these stories. You have your own stories with this. As you were collecting these stories from everybody, and I see so many names in here that are very familiar. were there any kind of anecdotes that maybe surprised you as you were kind of collecting things?
Not at all, because everybody had the same kind of relationship with Jimmy. I mean, he was all business when it was time for business. He was funnier than heck. He was a prankster, and he was a leader. He was a leader in a locker room, so you could go to him and he would give you the honest to God's advice. And it was just a good dude. Like, everybody has positive stories. Like, not one person has a negative story to share. He never had a crossword with pretty much nobody. I know the one person that I've ever heard had a crossword to say about him, and that was it.
He was a complete like father figure in terms of the way, when I was coming up in the business, the way he treated me, and it was not in a patronizing way, but in like the most nurturing, but sometimes having to also be like, hey man, you need to chill. Like, it was a combination of both of those things, and it meant the world to me. Bobby was talking about things like picking guys up. I remember when my car broke down, I couldn't get to practice. He drove all the way to Southside Slopes. That's where I was living in an apartment at the time, just to take me back out the other way to go to practice, and once again, for what? Like, it was, we weren't even a tag team at that point. I hadn't broken in anywhere at that point. It was one of those things. He was one of those guys who always gave of himself first. And that's why this book was so important too, is I really hope people understand that. Like, there aren't a whole lot of selfless guys in the business. And I, like myself too, I was, I wish I was more selfless when I was in the business. Like, I was definitely trying to get somewhere, and I was looking out for me. And Jimmy was the real, I say this all the time. People are like, he was the real article, the genuine article, a guy who would give you the shirt off his back without thinking twice. The real deal.
Absolutely.
Yeah, he literally would give the shirt off your back, because I can show you right here. He gave me the shirt off of his back one night. I mean, it's the truth. No matter who you were, he would help you out. If it was a guy that was in the locker room that people like to make fun of, he didn't. He went over there and he built that kid up. There's so many guys that will tell you that when certain people weren't being treated like one of the boys, he made them feel like one of the boys.
Absolutely.
Even in his booking too, because he booked CWF for many years, and he would give the guys that never got that opportunity a chance to showcase why they became a professional wrestler.
That reminds me of I touched on this briefly in the book, is the first time I met him at that show is a perfect example. We're doing this outlaw show. I'm barely, I honestly shouldn't have been in the ring. And he totally was willing to talk and help and all those things. And he didn't treat me like an outsider or like I didn't belong there. Even though, honestly, I probably didn't at that time.
There was a fun story, Glenn. I think this was your story about him getting you booked at PWX, even though he had like current at the time issues with the promotion in some fashion. And
that's another really great example. I'm sorry. Let me.
No, absolutely, please.
So yeah, he introduced me to Quinn Magnum at a CWF show, and helped me get booked and helped me get my first in on at PWX. And once again, it was one of those things where he obviously couldn't work there because there was some heat there that actually Bobby was able to explain to me. Jimmy had tried to explain it to me earlier, and honestly, the whole thing flew over my head. Bobby and I recently talked about it, and it makes more sense now, but I still don't. It's one of those things that I don't grasp, like in terms of, there are just things that go on in independent wrestling that I'll never completely understand. In terms of like, why would this last this long? Why would anyone care this much? You know what I mean? Like stuff happens. People lose shows. People lose buildings. Like, to hold on to it for any real length of time didn't make a lot of sense to me, but I tried to grasp it, but it didn't matter. He walked me up to Quinn Magnum. Quinn and I had a conversation, and and he vouched for me, and Quinn was willing to take a chance and bring me in. to do some stuff. And so it worked out really well. In terms of getting me, once again, he helped me in so many ways to get to like next step. And it was that constant contact and constant willing to work with me. He also took me out. My first mega championship wrestling matches were with Jimmy. He took me out to those. Those are out in Cleveland, Ohio, making those connections where I met like guys like Chris Cole, Jeff Traxler, those guys who helped me once again, help me with next steps and moving up. Even once I had done some other things, like when I got to go to Japan and all these other things, he would always come back to me and it's in the book and I don't want to spoil it, but I just I feel like it's important to say the selflessness thing. It's so crazy. He came up to me one night after a show that he had come to watch. I think I wrestled Cole Cabana that night or whatever. And he came up to me and he was like, you're doing good by me. Like that was what was important. It was a real Mickey Rocky type moment. He was like, the fact that you're doing well is doing well for me. And I swear to God, I just started crying. Like it was, the fact that that's what mattered. Like it wasn't about, once again, it wasn't about, oh, am I the most successful? It was like, oh no, the people and, the guys I've helped with, like, I love seeing them do better than me. So it's like, he passed that on to me, to be able to get over yourself. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. So the book's just coming out, and Bobby, you were telling me before the show, you like this is actually getting some traction out there. Like there's a response to this.
There absolutely is. I think because mental health right now is like a huge issue, and people are now starting to like talk about it and open up about their experiences. Where at one point it was taboo to speak about suicide and somebody that they knew committed suicide, like they forget about that person. Well, they're humans too. And there's an issue that led to that. And I think it's important that people need to talk about it because it affects people. I can speak in length about how bad it affected me. And I gave up a lot of opportunities because I was not there. Emotionally, I shut myself off. I built up these walls that took years to come down. And I missed out on a lot of opportunities because I fell down a really dark path. And, I'm human. I made a lot of mistakes, and it took a long time to dig myself out of that hole. And I think it's important that people need to hear that because it is a big issue in this world right now.
It seems to happen, I'm not going to say it happens a lot in wrestling, but it does, like you see it around wrestling a lot too.
Absolutely. Excessive, like the party scene can kind of get out of hand. And I mean, I was absolutely guilty of that.
And I think there's also this, I don't know if you guys have ever heard this concept. It really resonated with me when I was when I left wrestling, as a participant, not as not as a fan, not as a guy who loves to watch, who loves the business, but as an actual competitor, performer, et cetera, et cetera. There's a concept, I don't know if you ever heard, an athlete dies 2 deaths. And I think the hardest thing, and Jimmy wasn't done necessarily, I don't think he hadn't officially left the business or anything like that. But I think when you come to terms with where you are in the business and maybe this is it, and this is as far as you're going to go, I can tell you, the reason I stepped away for so long was because it crippled me mentally. And I'm not scared to say it. It's one of those things losing, once again, I walked away. I had to, we just there were so many different situations, particularly financial, that I just had to. I had no choice. I basically would I'd run out my rope. And then, Jimmy dies and all this stuff goes on, and you do feel like you're dead. You feel like you're dead inside because this thing that you had poured your entire life into, you're like, this is as far as I go. and trying to figure out what you're going to do next and how you're going to and how you're going to pick up those pieces is crazy when you've devoted like so much passion to something.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. I was 6 years into the business when Jimmy died, and I was just off of 2 successful UK tours, and I made a lot of connections over there, and one of which was with the TNA office. And I had some people that were higher up within TNA that were really pushing for me, and I had a lot of opportunities coming my way, but I fell down that path because I took his death very hard, and I, started partying way too much, and I looked at it and it was TNA's right here, but I end up fading off, and I lost out on that opportunity.
Yeah, yeah, it's a tough business. So, of course, people can pick this up. Bobby, you're not done with the books. You have more stories to tell, of course. From what I understand, maybe there's a whole list of them. you got the bug at this point, right?
I think so. I think I'm on the pulse of something here because there's so many people that you could write books on, and I hope that one day that I could knock every single one of them out, because I think that's great. It's a different thing right now in this world. People are all about the social media and watching stuff online, but pick up a book and read. You'll learn even more.
And I think the stories you're telling are super important in terms of I mean, maybe not in like this weird like global scale, but they're important in terms of I think especially at that time, like the early 2000s of Pittsburgh wrestling, there was so much magic going on that because YouTube hadn't become the biggest thing yet and all these other things, I don't know if people know. It's great now I like on that indie wrestling is indiewrestling.net?
US.
In IndieWrestling.us. I'm so happy. Oh my God. Like matches I forgot I was even in. Like, it's so cool. I was like, but people don't understand. There was magic, man. Like honest to God, real magic in that ring. Like so many talented people that you might never have even heard of going on,
Well, Pittsburgh was the place to be. I've said this time and time again that when I spent my tours over in England, at the merch table were Pittsburgh Indy IWC DVDs right there at the table in England. Like that's crazy. Like those were hot items overseas. So Pittsburgh as a whole was the place to be. I know so many guys made a name for themselves locally from coming from out of town. Punk was the first time he was flown anywhere with Pittsburgh. That's huge.
Yeah.
So, Chris Hero catches his first break in Pittsburgh. It's huge. It's insane, and I hope that one day that I can tell everybody everything that I know, because like right now, like creatively, my head is just so full of ideas, and there's so much that I'd love to get out.
And there's so much like we talk with IWC had good video production through the majority of its run. And there's so much kind of hidden in there. Like I don't know the PWX histories. I don't know the was a CWF history. It's always something I heard of and never got to. Like there's these other things that maybe you were an IWC fan or you're a PWX fan and don't know the others. So like I feel like so many fans may only know a sliver of the story that even lived through it. Right.
Right. Absolutely. Since quarantine, I've gotten on a lot of Zoom calls and Skype sessions with a lot of my friends. And just a couple of weeks ago, I was doing one with a couple of my buddies, and we were just talking about like 1997 through 1999 Pittsburgh wrestling. And there's so much of it that I didn't even know about. And I've been around Pittsburgh wrestling since mid '97. So it's crazy just to hear some of these stories. And I think that's going to be my project for the foreseeable future. Just get these stories out there, educate everybody. Because I know I sit back in the locker room and I'm that old timer now that I tell the stories of the olden days to these kids that, my referee shirt is older than.
Yeah. Yeah.
The amount of fun and once again, this kind of positive super energy that was going on in these locker rooms. It is insane. And I'm sure it's still like that. I don't want to say like, oh, my time, like, music now sucks. You know, like I don't want to be like that. I'm just saying I can't speak for what's going on right now, but the energy that was in those locker rooms, you know, in the time that I was there, it was beyond contagious. It like you just felt it well up in you. Every show was the show you could be discovered.
Yep, absolutely. Because you never knew too at that point who was watching. Because there were so many people coming to Pittsburgh just to watch shows.
Yeah, it was crazy. Some like I said, when I got pulled to Japan, it was just like Mackie had brought over those like these two Japanese guys that are just watching the show. Like it was at the they went to the the War Memorial show.
Okay.
Johnstown, right? War Memorial?
Yep, Johnstown.
Yeah. You just never knew. And so the thing was, you had these guys that were out there and they're just killing each other because you just didn't know who was in the audience that night. Maybe there was a scout for ROH. Maybe there was a scout for whatever. I mean, not scout, but whatever, you know, like trying to get just anybody to get knows of you. Maybe some super fan that was going to go on a message board and be like, oh my God, this guy's the next big thing.
Yeah, right.
That's great. Well, we do have a question from the chat room from one Justin Idol. When is the audiobook coming out? I think we're doing it now, aren't we?
Maybe I can get Bulk Nasty to read it.
Oh, nice.
I would, in all seriousness, Bobby, if you did that, I think you could get every one of those workers that put content in there to read their sections. I think that would be really cool, actually.
That would be good.
That would be cool. But when we go back and watch the Devil show, how hard it was for certain people to talk during their little testimonial, it might be difficult to do.
Absolutely. Well, you're not done yet. As we mentioned, you have many more projects coming up, and I understand you do have one, maybe not the audiobook just yet, but you do have something else that you have in the works.
Yeah, I just talked to some people, and I sent you the cover, so hopefully we can get that shown up here. But my next book project I'm going to do is another very important person to my wrestling career, and I spoke to his kids about it, and they're completely 100% on board. But my next story is going to be about JT Lightning.
Nice.
It's going to be called "There's Your Boy."
Great, absolutely excellent choice.
So. Not familiar as much with JT Lightning myself. What is the history on that phrase?
That was his saying.
Really? Okay.
That was his saying. It was on the back of his T-shirt. He used it in every promo, every match. I mean, that was...
JT Lightning was awesome to have in the locker room, and he was like one of those guys who he was an absolute straight shooter. You knew exactly where you stood with JT Lightning literally the minute you met him. He was dude, I like, in a world of like, you know, once again, like wrestling's a weird business and people are very political and shit like that. In a world where you would want to like it worked for me because I'm a big dummy, and a guy who would like, it's like, oh, I know exactly how you feel about me because you're totally like, what you see is what you get.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I worked for him extremely regular. Probably missed, I think it actually is like 4 shows I missed for him over a 7-year period.
Jeez.
So yeah, he was my boss, and he put me in a lot of situations that really made me a better worker. And I learned so much from him as well as I did with Jimmy. So I'm really happy about this one. Again, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm not going to take 1 penny off of proceeds. I'm donating it all to charity. Mm-hmm. Same with Devil's book. It's all going to the suicide prevention. So they never asked for a penny off of me. I'm never giving them a penny. I'm not taking a penny from this.
I'm sorry,
and Bobby. Thank you for doing that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
I guess there's a JT story being dropped in the chat room right now, and by the way, this Sonny Landell I think was just featured over on Greg Iron's podcast.
I haven't listened to that, but no. I have. I wish I would have known that he was filming something like that, because I was the first person in the ring post Sonny Landell pooping himself, and I have an even funnier part to that story because I don't know how accurate Greg told it. But so here's the story. I'm sitting in Gorilla with JT, Chris Hamrick, and Jerry Lynn. And we're watching the match. It was Sonny Landell versus Unibrow Match Strikers student named Al Qaeda.
Oh, what year is this? What year is this?
This was in 2006, maybe. And
I'm sorry, I can't hear you over him laughing.
I'm sorry, I apologize on me. I can mute myself.
JT obviously hated the name, so he made him change it to just Big Al, but he still did all the gimmick stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So they're working. Tom Dunn is the referee for the match, and they're maybe like 2 minutes in. JT's talking about how much he loves Sonny Landell. He's got this great old school character that works in Cleveland, and he was like, I want to use this guy regularly. Anytime Hamrick's booked, Hamrick, bring him with you. I love him. Next thing you know, he shoots Sonny into the corner, takes a big backdrop, and Sonny just lays there. And Al comes over, hooks him, and Tom Dunn does the 1, 2, 3, and then Sonny rolls out of the ring. And he comes back, and JT's like right at the curtain. He was like, man, are you okay? And he just like throws the curtain, and he starts walking past. He's like, God damn it. And we're like, you okay? Are you hurt? He's like, nothing, man. Just leave me alone. He walks past, and then you smell it. And he had it all on the back of him. It was so gross. Then, the show goes on, so I have to go out.
You got no choice.
I go out to the ring, and I see something in the ring, and it's dark in Turner's Hall. I don't have my glasses on, so I see Hank standing there, and he's like kind of like moving something. And we had this ring bitch that would come and pick up all the jackets and stuff. He was this little turd from Cleveland. I don't want to say his name because I don't want to give him any press, but he was doing all the jackets and stuff, and I looked at him. I'm like, hey man, come here. I was like, go get some paper towels and the cleaning spray. So he runs, goes to get it, and he's trying to hand it to me. I was like, no dude, pick that up. Like, hurry up, pick that up and get this out of here and let's clean this. So he actually picked up the big turd that was left in the ring and had to like clean up the area.
My like the things I remember about JT aren't as nearly as humorous, but I will say this just to put him over. When I worked for Cleveland All Pro, like totally professional, well-run shows just in general. And I worked him actually just like in a match in Mega, and once again, like smooth as silk. Mm-hmm. Just a guy like you got, like boom, you tie up and you're just like, oh, this is gonna be an easy night. Like we're gonna have some fun.
He made it look so effortless. And I think that's what set him apart from everybody else.
And he likes the Misfits. And since that's pretty much my favorite band in the whole world, how can I? He had a Misfits gimmick. The second I saw him in a Misfits gimmick, I was like, I love this guy.
well, wait till you see the cover of the book. You'll appreciate it then.
Nice. So tell me, where can people find all your great publications and the future ones coming up here? And of course, we'll include links in the notes as well. Absolutely. I'm publishing everything through Blurb. So you can just go in there and just type in my name, type in any of my book titles, Devil Bhudakahn. Let's see, my professional wrestling career over the years, or the different titles. So you can search for them and be able to look them up right there, or just message me directly. My DMs are always open. You can always send me a message and I'll shoot you a link to them. Like I said, all the proceeds for the Devil book going directly to suicide prevention. Absolutely. Thank you so much, guys. This has been so much fun. Glenn, thank you for joining us. We're gonna have to get you back on and talk about God knows what.
I'll talk about literally anything. I am very, very chatty.
Okay.
But I just wanted to say once again, like, Bobby, thank you so much for contacting me. And the only thing I can say, like, in addition to that, is like, thank God for Jimmy Fawcett, because what he did for me is beyond what, like, once again, I can't thank him enough. He helped me and I had many people help me. There's a billion people. Next time, if you ever have me on again, I'll thank everybody. But it like he really helped me get my start into what is probably the most interesting, like wonderful, magical part of my life. It's just this crazy experience, and I owe a lot of that to him.
Awesome.
And I'm really appreciate that Bobby brought me in on this, because it was something I had to get off my chest, and I'm glad I could be a part of it. And Bobby did an awesome job.
Awesome.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that. There's so many people that I had to get involved, because if it weren't for Jimmy, none of us would be in the position that we're in, because he pushed for us, he molded most of us, and more importantly, he was our friend. I mean, friend, mentor, brother. He was super important to everybody, and I couldn't do it alone, and I'm glad that everybody came out on board to do it. You especially, Hentai, JT Rogers. JT Rogers did a pretty cool painting that's included in there, and I got the actual like physical print, and it's like it's badass. It's just so cool, and I'm just so happy that it came together as well as it did.
If I can put something over too, like the Hellfire Club in general, like that whole thing, Sam, Joey, Jimmy, holy shit. You guys have no idea, as a young wrestler looking at that, how much you wanted to be a part of it. Like, holy crap.
There's a reason why I bought the Mantis gimmick.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry, Mantis too. Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, awesome. Those were just some good times, and like the stories, the matches, everything was just fantastic. Like, they were the red hot angles at that time.
Yeah, it was like when I first got booked on a CWF show, like watching that stuff, it's just like, oh my god, like that's where if you were interested in working heel, holy shit. So like I said, it's like lightning.
So there's a really cool picture in the book that I had to include, and let's find it real quick.
Oh, let's not forget Katarina Heist too.
Absolutely, can't forget about her. Here's the picture. So I am sitting directly behind Jimmy in the front row, and that angle was red hot. The tombstone off the top rope through a table. The next show they had the funeral of Super Hentai, and the heat in that building was insane. And then he comes back babyface and saves the day. But you can't do that stuff anymore and get that kind of reaction.
Mm-hmm.
They were so hated. R.I.P. Sarah Guntram. She damn near ran Doe down with her car in the parking lot.
Oh yeah, there was like, the heat was legit. They did such a good job. It's like, once again, every heel these days, I don't like music now or whatever. Like, every heel these days wants to be loved. I mean, like, they got the heat.
Without a doubt. I mean, there's so many stories, and like, I could talk about those days all day long. Those were just the best times. And I try to educate some of the kids that are coming up now that have no idea who paved the roads for them.
Mm-hmm.
And I always go to bat and say there's two guys that are responsible for 99% of the guys in the locker room: Super Hentai, Devil Bhudakahn. They were the first two that were under 6'5", 250, to give these young guys an opportunity to showcase the cruiserweight style, the Japanese style, and the lucha libre style.
Yep. And for pure mentorship, I'd throw Sam in there too, obviously.
Absolutely. Yep. They were the ones that were most instrumental in changing the landscape of Pittsburgh indie wrestling.
And then Sam Shirley Doe, for those that don't know in the audience.
Yeah, I mean, because once again, like you were talking about, like these guys, the thing about that crew is like they wanted to educate. They wanted to talk about tapes. You go sit in a basement with them and watch tapes. And that's like, it's like I said, I'm sure people do it now, but God, man, like, you know, that's another thing I'd tell anybody who was like in their first year or whatever, watch 1,000,000,000 tapes, you know, but these guys would sit there and watch tapes with you and deconstruct them.
Mm-hmm.
How many times do we have tape nights in my garage?
Yeah.
Yeah. There'd be a group of us to sit back watching whatever, just to pick them apart and take them to practice that following Tuesday.
Mm-hmm. I mentioned it in the book, but Jimmy's the kind of guy who would like, he'd listen to you cut a promo, you know, and try to talk you through it.
He did that to me, and I tell that story in my book. The one and only singles match I had with him, he was booking CWF at the time, and we were starting this angle, which led to the anniversary show, and he wanted me to go out and cut a promo, but he forgot to tell me the promo, what the topics were, because he was so busy getting everything else together. So we're like minutes before bell time, and he's like, oh yeah, by the way, you have to say this, 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 and this. I'm like, what? My music's playing and I have to go out. So I'm out in the ring and I'm like, I don't even know what this promo is about. So I get out in the ring and I grab the mic and he's telling me the whole promo while we're standing there face to face. So I'm just literally repeating word for word what he's telling me to say.
Mm-hmm.
And it worked.
Oh,
nobody had no idea.
And I know you talk about this a little bit like before, but like they I actually, one of the neat like little connections of all of us together. Do you want to talk a little bit? I don't know how much time we have left. That match that you guys had for CWF, the Ladders Crazy Table, like where you did the sliced bread number 2 through the table. Holy shit, dude! Oh my God, the chemistry. You and Jimmy had good chemistry, man. Like
we did, and it broke my heart knowing when he passed away that I will never get to like really see how far we can go, because I had 2 matches with him, a singles match and then that match. And you're absolutely right. Like we didn't call a whole lot.
One of the things that threw me in a funk after everything went down was the absolute realization. The one thing we never got to finish was like any tag team breaks up, it's absolutely inevitable. Mm-hmm. But Jimmy really wanted to do some kind of blow off feud. With he cut the promo once with me, and I loved it where he used that line. And don't get me wrong, it's a cliche line, but it's such a good line where it's like, you know, I taught you everything you know, but I didn't teach you everything that I know. And I, you know, and his goal was like once again to go back to this. We keep pointing to this thing with Jimmy and selflessness, and he wanted to put me over at the very end of it and all that stuff. You know, the way a good heel face angle works, and the fact that we never really got that chance, like it definitely ate at me. You know, because I think it would have been a good program because working with Jimmy was easy, man.
I feel kind of like bad that I haven't said this either at this point, but there's another person that we really have to thank too for opening his doors to us was Joe Perry.
Like considering the fact that he had just passed, I fell out of touch with Joe, but I mean, same thing. It's like if Joe Perry didn't have that ring in that place that we could use and that whole thing, like, yeah, once again, it never really pops off for me at all.
Sure. And I'm in the same boat that we lost contact. I saw him once in maybe 5 years, and I'm kicking myself that I didn't reach out more.
Same. I mean, he always treated me well. And the thing about Joe Perry is he ran a lot of outlaw shows and things like that. But the thing that people need to understand, and this is unbelievably important, it's going to sound mercenary as hell, but it is the literal highest compliment. He always paid the boys. Mm-hmm. I mean, some of these shows, like they're outlaw shows, like the crowds are shit. He always paid the boys. And the workers out there that are hearing this will understand what I mean. Like the like to regular people watching this, they're going to be like, who gives a shit? I'm telling you. It is the highest of compliments. Like, I'm not saying he ran the greatest shows on earth, whatever, blah, blah, but he cared about the boys. And he always came through with what he said he was going to do.
Absolutely. He was another one. He was the godfather of Pittsburgh. When you hear stories of any of the old timers talking about Joe's been around probably the longest,
Mm-hmm.
and he has so many stories, and he played such an important role in the history of Pittsburgh wrestling, where he ran some of the first independent shows, or as we've now coined, the outlaw shows. But he was the master of them. He knew how to cut corners, but run successful shows, and sometimes they
And
weren't
when I
successful.
say outlaw shows, it's not disparaging. It's just that my understanding was, like, now looking back on it, I don't think he had a license to run them. Like,
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
no license, no doctor, but they were what he considered private parties.
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
So they weren't, maybe there wasn't an admission, but that
And-
was his way around it.
And the boys knew the score. Like, we all knew what we were getting into. Come on.
This ties it all in together. But the very first show that I physically met Jimmy at was a Joe Perry Outlaw show.
Mm-hmm.
I tell the story in the book, so I'll give you the Cliff Notes version. My mom worked for Giant Eagle. They had a company picnic. One of her coworkers was another local professional wrestler, gorgeous Greg Wallace, and so there was a match between Vince Viper, which was Devil Bhudakahn without the mask, and 747 or JoJo Binks, depending on show. But that was Super Hentai, and this was in Renzi Park in McKeesport, and JoJo Binks jumped off the top of a fence, split into two baseball fields, and broke the fence. And
I believe that is also the couple quick little anecdotes that you might find funny. Number one, if you ever look at my tape, real quick, if you ever look at my tape in any IWC match, if you get a quick still or whatever, you're going to see VV2 on my left hand. And that was because at one point when I was training, when I was real dog shit in the ring, Jimmy was like, "Well, you're never going to really be a Devil Bhudakahn 2, but you might be a Vince Viper 2." and also, so I always put VV2 on my tape when every effing match, I would put VV2 on my tape as a tribute to Jimmy. That was before any of this bullshit went down. That's just because I love the guy. And then the other thing was, I believe that is the match where Chris Cole did a dive in which he climbed on the top rope and said, "I'm a giant eagle." Bok bok.
Rika, that was 3 years later.
Oh, was it?
That was 3
Okay.
years later.
Whatever.
Yeah, they ran that show successfully for 3 years straight.
Okay. All right. Well, I was on the show where Chris Cole said, "I'm a giant eagle," and he meant to do an eagle thing, but he looked like a chicken.
Jeez. Oh god, we'll be here all night. Guys, thank you so much. We have to cut this off at an hour at least.
Dude, thank you so much for the invite, man.
No,
talking
absolutely.
About Jimmy, like I said, if you want to do this again, I'd do it anytime. Like, talking about Jimmy is easy.
Very
No,
easy.
absolutely.
He is literally the best of us.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Glenn. Glenn, is there anything you need to plug or anything like that while you're here? I don't know what you're up to these days.
I'm an old fat man sitting in my basement right now.
You just go look up Glenn Spectre on Indy Wrestling US YouTube. There's a bunch of his stuff in there.
I sell games for nerds now. I own a game store in Castle Shannon, so check it out, Drawbridge Games.
I drive by it all the time.
We're like 10 days, 11 days away from our 5-year anniversary. So thanks for everybody who buys games.
Nice. Stop in. And Potter, where do you want people to be checking out your stuff at?
Yeah, but you get RPW Wrestling 138 at Twitter. I don't even know what my Instagram handle is anymore because I got hacked not too long ago. It's Harold Potter 138. How about that? So you can just hit me up on there and DM me, and I'll send you links to all my projects.
Jake Garrett's
I'm terrible at social media stuff.
Jake Garrett's in the chat saying keep going. I'm sure this is better than Raw. So
I got nothing to do until 8 a.m. tomorrow. So
thank you guys so much. Please, everybody, pick up the book. Again, we'll have links in here, and And again, please support your friends, especially, I think, I know, Bobby, you've been sharing a lot of stuff about suicide prevention. Very important, especially with everything that's been going on in the last several months here. A lot of people getting kind of cut off from whatever has helped them keep going. So, definitely good to have that awareness there. I will also keep that hotline in the chat, in the notes as well. So thank you, everybody. Thank you, everybody, for checking this out and sticking with us and hearing some great stories from the good old days here. Until next time, please support indie wrestling.
Thank you
again.